Have you ever stopped to think about the actual blueprint of a nation as huge and, well, vibrant as India? I mean, how does it handle all that diversity, the massive population, and keep that democratic spirit alive? It's a big question. And today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that blueprint, the Constitution of India. This isn't, just some dusty legal text. It's the living framework that shapes the everyday lives of over 1 billion people. It's evolved, it's adapted.
Yeah.
It's quite something.
Yeah, and our mission today is really to unpack this incredible document module by module. We want to explore its meaning, its pretty amazing historical journey, and all the crucial mechanisms it sets up for governance. We'll pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge for you, try to simplify some of the more complex articles, highlight those fascinating features they borrowed from elsewhere, and hopefully give you insights that actually stick.
Think of this as your shortcut to really getting how India works, maybe with some surprising facts thrown in.
Yeah.
Get ready for a few aha moments, hopefully.
Really?
Okay, let's unpack this then. Before we get into the weeds of India's constitution specifically, maybe we should ask, what is a constitution, just generally? And how did this huge document for India actually come about? The origin story.
That's a perfect place to start, because understanding the general idea really helps you appreciate India's own journey. The word constitution itself comes from Latin constituere. It literally means to form, to establish, or to compose. So, at its absolute core, a constitution is basically a body of rules and regulations. It's the foundational document. It sets up how a country is governed, defines the government's powers, its limits, its duties, and often the rights of the people living there.
So it's more than just a rule book. It's about structure, how society is arranged. I remember reading Aristotle had quite a profound take on this, didn't he?
He absolutely did. A classic definition. Aristotle said, "Constitution is the way in which citizens, who are component parts of the state, are arranged in relation to one another." What's really insightful there, even from way back then, is that it highlights that a constitution isn't just dry law. It's about the fundamental social setup, the government structure, the relationships between people, between groups, and the state itself, how power works, how people participate. It's the blueprint for a working society, essentially.
That's powerful, yeah. Tying it right back to how humans organize themselves. Okay, so historically speaking, when did this idea of a written constitution, like a single codified document, really take hold in the modern world? Was India breaking new ground or building on examples?
Well, the term constitution had been used before. Like you mentioned, Henry II of England in the 16th century with his Constitution of Clarendon. That dealt with church and state relations. But when we talk about a written constitution, a single document laying everything out, the big one, the benchmark, is definitely the United States. They prepared and adopted their constitution way back in 1789. That makes it the oldest and the first proper written constitution globally.
Wow, 1789.
Yeah, it was revolutionary then. I mean, codifying the fundamental law like that, it set a new standard, and many nations, including India later on, looked to that example, even while creating something uniquely their own.
Right, and India's journey to its own constitution. Well, you can imagine, for a nation that size, it was incredibly complex, deeply tied into the whole struggle for independence. Let's walk through some of those key moments, the milestones that led to this huge creation.
It was a massive undertaking, absolutely, a real reflection of the nation's hopes and its fight for self-rule.
It actually started pretty early on. Way back in 1922, Mahatma Gandhi himself called for a constitution specifically for India. That was, even before independence seemed certain. It was a political statement as much as anything.
Yes, asserting that right to self-determination. And that idea gathered steam. By 1928, we saw the Nehru Report. This wasn't just talk. It actually laid out a basic framework for what became India's fundamental rights. So the seeds were being planted quite early.
Then fast forward to 1935, the Indian National Congress, the INC, they formally demanded an Indian constitution, crucially, without outside interference. That was a huge step, basically saying, we'll write our own rules, thank you very much.
A clear assertion of sovereignty. And then global events intervened, didn't they? World War II. In 1942, the British sent the Cripps mission. They proposed independence after the war, but it came with strings attached.
And Indian leaders rejected it, right?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't full self-determination on their terms.
Exactly. It showed India wasn't going to compromise on shaping its own constitutional future. That set the stage for the Constituent Assembly.
But even that wasn't straightforward. Elections were held in 1946, which was progress, but the Muslim League then pulled out. That threw a spanner in the works, didn't it, given their significant representation?
It really did. The total strength was meant to be 389, and the League had 173 seats. Their withdrawal highlighted those deep communal divisions that were unfortunately a major factor at the time.
And that deadlock eventually led to the decision on partition. In June 1947, the Mountbatten Plan resolved the crisis, but by declaring the India-Pakistan partition. A very painful process, but it did clear the path for the Constituent Assembly to finally focus on drafting a constitution just for independent India.
It allowed them to move forward, and then just months later, August 15th, 1947, Independence Day, power transferred, Jawaharlal Nehru became the first prime minister.
And crucially, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar became law minister and chairman of the drafting committee. His role just cannot be overstated, can it?
Absolutely central. His legal mind, his scholarship, indispensable. By 1948, Dr. Ambedkar presented the first draft constitution. And this wasn't, dashed off quickly. It was the product of years of intense debate, meticulous work, considering countless inputs.
A monumental effort.
Really?
And the final moment came on November 26, 1949. The President of the Constituent Assembly, Dr. Babu Rajendra Prasad, officially passed the Constitution. 161 members signed it that day. Quite a symbolic moment of consensus.
And then the big day, January 26, 1950, the Indian Constitution came into force. That's celebrated as Republic Day, marking India's transformation into a republic head of state elected, power with the people.
Just imagine the weight on their shoulders.
Yeah.
Building a nation's foundational law for such a diverse place, basically from the ground up.
An immense responsibility, and while they learned from others, it was very much an indigenous creation, tailored for India.
So let's look at the numbers. What does this document actually look like on paper? The scale is pretty mind-blowing.
It really is. The time taken itself tells a story. 2 years, 11 months, and 17 days. That's dedication.
Incredible.
And structurally, when it started, it had 395 articles and 22 chapters with 8 schedules. But it's a living document, remember. As of, say, January 2020, it had grown to 448 articles, 25 chapters, and 12 schedules. It shows how it's evolved.
Quite the expansion. And word count. I hear it's one of the longest.
Oh, absolutely. It clocks in at a staggering 1,017,369 words, makes it one of the lengthiest written constitutions anywhere in the world. That length reflects the detail needed for India's complexity.
And it hasn't stayed the same since 1950, has it? It's been amended quite a bit.
Exactly. As of January 2021, there had been 115 constitutional amendments. That really highlights its adaptability. The framers built in ways for it to change with the times. These numbers aren't just stats. They tell a story of document design for both permanence and flexibility.
And the final piece of that initial puzzle. When did democracy really kick into gear with elections?
The first general election for Parliament, both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, was held in May 1952. That was the moment the democratic machinery outlined in the Constitution actually started turning, putting power in the hands of the people through the ballot box.
Okay, so we've got the how and the when. Now let's get into the what. The essence, the spirit, the defining features of this unique document. What makes the Indian Constitution tick? What are its core principles and the rights it guarantees?
Right, this is where we see the philosophy behind it. And if you look at the bigger picture, all these features really weave together to create this robust, inclusive, and crucially adaptive system for governing an incredibly diverse nation.
First up, it's famous for being written and lengthiest. It's all codified, written down, and incredibly detailed. Not much left ambiguous, which is quite something for a country like India.
That detail is definitely a key characteristic. Another vital feature is the preamble. It's like the introduction, laying out the Constitution's guiding purpose, its core values. You could almost call it the mission statement for the nation.
And right at the heart, it establishes a people's government democracy. Power rests with the people. That's fundamental. And tied to that, India is a republic. The head of state is elected, not a king or queen.
Exactly. And critically, it lays out fundamental rights and fundamental duties. These are the core freedoms guaranteed to citizens and also the responsibilities citizens have towards the nation. It's a two-way street.
Then there's the principle of India being a secular state. Hugely important given the religious diversity. No state religion, equal respect for all faiths.
Absolutely. And complementing that is the universal adult franchise system. Voting rights for all adults, regardless of caste, creed, religion, sex. That was incredibly progressive when it was adopted, immediately empowering everyone over a certain age.
The Constitution itself is also described as partly flexible and partly rigid. What does that mean exactly?
It means it can be amended so it can adapt. but the core fundamental principles are deliberately made harder to change. This provides stability and stops the basic structure from being altered easily based on, shifting political winds.
Got it. And then there's the federal structure, dividing power between the central government and the state governments. Essential for managing such a vast and varied country.
Crucial. And alongside that, a parliamentary form of government. The executive, the prime minister, and ministers, they're accountable to the parliament, the legislature. That ensures checks and balances.
And something quite distinctive, special provisions for SC, ST women and children. These are specific measures aimed at uplifting disadvantaged groups, showing a real commitment to social justice and trying to correct historical wrongs.
Yes, a strong focus on positive discrimination there.
Yeah.
Another pillar is the independent judiciary. Courts are separate, free from influence from the other branches. They act as the guardian of the Constitution and people's rights.
And finally, a very direct social reform measure, the eradication of untouchability. It's explicitly prohibited. A powerful statement against a deep-rooted historical injustice. You put all these together, it's a pretty unique and comprehensive framework.
It really is.
Now, here's a real aha moment for many people. India's constitution wasn't created in a vacuum. It's actually a brilliant blend, a tapestry woven from ideas borrowed from around the world, but crucially adapted.
That's a key point. It wasn't just copying. It was about seeing what worked elsewhere and then thoughtfully integrating and adapting those concepts for India's specific needs and context. It shows real pragmatism.
Okay, let's run through some key borrowings. From the UK, they took the idea of the Speaker of the House and a lot of the nuts and bolts of the lawmaking procedure. The parliamentary model, basically.
Right. The Westminster influence is clear there. Then from the USA, some really big ones. Fundamental rights, that idea of guaranteed liberties. Also the federal structure concept and the principle of an independent judiciary, foundational pillars for a democratic republic.
Canada provided the model for a federal system, but with a strong central government, important for holding a diverse country together.
Yes, balancing federalism with national unity. From Russia, or the USSR back then, came the concept of 5-year plans for economic development. That guided a lot of early planning.
The ideals in the preamble, freedom, equality, fraternity, those have strong echoes of the French Revolution and their constitution. Very aspirational.
Deeply influential ideals. And a very important, though maybe less famous, borrowing came from the Irish Constitution. The Directive Principles of State Policy, or DPSP. Those guiding principles for the state we'll talk more about.
And fundamental duties, the citizens' responsibilities, influences there from Japan and China.
Mm-hmm. And for handling crises, the German Weimar Constitution offered insights into emergency provisions, outlining how the state can act in exceptional circumstances.
Finally, Australia contributed the idea of the concurrent list, where both center and states can make laws, and also the principle of freedom of trade between states, fostering a unified national market.
So you see a real global synthesis, but always with an Indian focus.
Let's talk about the preamble itself. You called it the soul of the Constitution. It's that introductory statement, and it's incredibly powerful. Let me read it out. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic and commensuration, to secure to all the citizens justice, social, economic, and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, fraternity, assuring the dignity of individual and unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November, 1949, to hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves this Constitution.
It's stirring stuff, isn't it? And it serves two main purposes. First, it explicitly states the source of authority. We, the people of India. That firmly roots the Constitution in popular sovereignty.
Power comes from the people.
Exactly. And second, it clearly lays out the objectives the Constitution aims to achieve. Justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. These aren't just words. They're the guiding stars for the entire nation, for all laws and government actions. It really sets the moral and ethical compass. And interestingly, the Supreme Court has often referred back to the preamble, especially when developing concepts like the basic structure doctrine, which protects the Constitution's core identity.
Okay, now on to something absolutely core. The fundamental rights. These are in Part 3, Articles 14 to 35. They're the bedrock of individual liberty and dignity in India. These are the rights you, as a citizen, can claim from the state.
And crucially, they are considered political rights. They're often described as negative rights because they restrict what the state can do to you. But the most important thing, They are justiciable and enforceable,
Meaning?
meaning you can go to court if they're violated. You can even go straight to the Supreme Court under Article 32. They aren't just suggestions, they have real legal power behind them. That's what makes them fundamental.
Let's break them down because they cover so much ground. First, the right to equality. That's Articles 14 to 18. This covers equality before the law, prohibits discrimination on grounds like religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth. It guarantees equal opportunity in public jobs, and very importantly, abolishes untouchability and titles. It's about creating a level playing field.
Then you have the right to freedom, Articles 19 to 22. This is actually a bundle of key freedoms. Freedom of speech and expression, freedom to assemble peacefully, to form associations, to move freely throughout India, to reside anywhere, and to practice any profession. These are vital for a functioning democracy and individual life choices.
Next, the right against exploitation, Articles 23 and 24. This specifically prohibits human trafficking, forced labor, and child labor in dangerous jobs. A clear statement about protecting human dignity and the vulnerable.
Absolutely. And then the right to freedom of religion, Articles 25 to 28. Essential in India. It guarantees freedom of conscience, the freedom to freely profess, practice, and propagate religion. It also ensures freedom from paying taxes for promoting any particular religion. It underpins India's secular character.
Following that are the culture and educational rights, Articles 29 and 30. These protect the interests of minorities, giving them the right to conserve their distinct language, script, and culture, and also the right to establish and run their own educational institutions. It's about preserving diversity.
And then we get to what Dr. Ambedkar called the heart and soul of the Constitution. The right to constitutional remedies, Article 32. This is the right that guarantees all the other rights. It gives citizens the right to move the Supreme Court directly if any of their fundamental rights are violated. Without this, the others would just be words on paper.
And this right works through specific legal tools called writs, right? These are court orders. There are 5 main types.
That's correct. These writs are the enforcement mechanism.
Okay, first is habeas corpus, Latin for habeas body. This means a court can order someone who's detained a person to physically bring that person before the court to determine if the detention is lawful. It's a safeguard against illegal imprisonment.
Then mandamus, which means command. This is an order from a court to a public official or body, telling them to perform a public duty that they failed or refused to do. It holds officials accountable.
Third is prohibition, meaning to forbid. A higher court issues this to a lower court or tribunal to stop it from exceeding its legal jurisdiction. It keeps the courts working within their proper boundaries.
Fourth, certiorari, meaning to be certified or to be informed. A higher court uses this to order a lower court to transfer a case up to it for review, or to quash an order made by the lower court if there was a legal error. It allows higher courts to correct mistakes.
And finally, quo warranto, meaning by what authority? This writ challenges someone's claim to be holding a public office. It asks, by what legal right do you hold this position? Prevents illegal occupation of public posts.
And just a quick historical footnote. There used to be a 7th fundamental right, the right to property. But it was removed from the fundamental rights list by the 44th Amendment in 1978. It still exists as a legal right, but not a fundamental one. That was a significant shift.
Right. Okay, so we've covered the rights the state guarantees. Now let's shift to the guiding principles for the state, the duties citizens have, and then we'll dive into the union executive, the branch that actually runs the show day to day.
Exactly. This next part shows the other side of the coin, the state's aspirations and the citizen's contribution. It completes the picture of the social contract envisioned by the Constitution.
Let's start with the Directive Principles of State Policy, the DPSP, Articles 36 to 51. What are these instrument of instructions, and why the nickname Toothless Tigers?
Right, the DPSP. They're borrowed from the Irish Constitution. They're called Instrument of Instructions because they are essentially guidelines for the state principles the government should keep in mind when making laws and policies. The Toothless Tiger nickname comes because, unlike fundamental rights, they're non-enforceable and non-justiciable. You can't take the government to court for failing to implement a DPSP. Their implementation depends on political will, resources, and the government's priorities.
So if they can't be enforced in court, what's their actual use? Why have them?
That's a great question. What's fascinating is that even without legal teeth, they serve as a crucial moral and political compass. They are fundamental to the governance of the country, providing a framework for social and economic justice. Think of them as the long-term goals, the vision for a welfare state. Many important laws and social schemes India has implemented over the years actually draw their inspiration directly from the DPSPs. They shape policy even if they aren't court-mandated.
Okay, so they set a direction. Let's quickly touch on the different types of DPSPs to get a feel for their scope. First, there are the socialist principles. These aim for social and economic justice, a welfare state. Things like securing adequate means of livelihood, equal pay for equal work, protecting workers and children from exploitation, providing free legal aid, ensuring the right to work, education, and public assistance in certain cases, like unemployment or old age.
Then you have the Gandhian principles. These reflect Mahatma Gandhi's ideals, often focusing on rural development and social equity. Examples include organizing village panchayats, local self-government, promoting cottage industries, promoting the educational and economic interests of weaker sections like SCs and STs, improving public health, prohibiting intoxicating drinks, and organizing agriculture and animal husbandry, including prohibiting cow slaughter, very much focused on grassroots development and social reform.
And finally, the liberal intellectual principles. These cover broader administrative, legal, and international goals. Things like securing a uniform civil code for all citizens, providing free and compulsory education for children up to 14, protecting historical monuments, separating the judiciary from the executive to ensure independence, and promoting international peace and security. A mix of modern governance principles. Okay, so that's the state's guidebook. Now, what about the citizen's side? The fundamental duties. These are in Chapter IVA, Article 51A. They weren't in the original Constitution, right? Added later.
That's right. They were added by the 42nd Amendment in 1976. The thinking was that rights and duties should go hand in hand. They remind citizens that they also have responsibilities towards the nation.
Let's highlight a few key ones to make them more concrete.
Sure. A basic one is to abide by the Constitution and respect its ideals, institutions, the national flag, and the national anthem. Sets a baseline for civic respect.
Another is to cherish the noble ideals that inspired India's freedom struggle, keeping that history alive.
Absolutely. And crucially, to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity, and integrity of India, foundational for national existence. Also, promoting harmony and the spirit of common brotherhood amongst all people, transcending all kinds of divisions, religious, linguistic, etc., very important for national integration.
There's also a duty towards the environment, to protect and improve the natural environment.
Yes, and one promoting a rational outlook, to develop scientific temper, humanism, and the spirit of inquiry and reform, encouraging critical thinking. And a very significant one, added by the 86th Amendment, the duty of parents or guardians to provide opportunities for education to their child between the ages of 6 and 14, making education a shared responsibility.
It really creates a balance, doesn't it? That quote comes to mind. John F. Kennedy.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. That's exactly the spirit behind fundamental duties. Rights and duties together weave that strong civic fabric.
Okay, shifting gears now to the structure of the union government. We mentioned the parliamentary system is largely from the UK model, and the federal system, with that strong center, is borrowed from Canada.
Division of powers between the center and the states. The Constitution uses 3 lists for this. The Union list has subjects only the central government can legislate on. Think defense, foreign affairs, railways, currency, big national stuff. About 97 subjects initially.
Then the state list. These are areas for state governments, police, public health, agriculture, local government, things closer to the ground. Around 66 subjects.
And the concurrent list. Here, both the center and the states can make laws. Examples include criminal law, marriage and divorce, education, economic planning. Around 47 subjects. If there's a conflict between a central and state law on a concurrent subject, the central law usually prevails. This division is key to how the federal system functions day to day.
And the union government itself has 3 main branches. The classic separation of powers. Legislature, executive, and judiciary.
Correct. Making the laws, implementing the laws, and interpreting the laws.
Let's dive into the union executive first. This is the branch that implements the laws. As you said, it's like the UK system, but with an elected president instead of a monarch. It includes the president, vice president, prime minister, and the council of ministers. So the president, they're the constitutional head, right, above party politics.
Yes, the head of state, not head of government. They serve a 5-year term, maximum 2 terms. And they're not directly elected by the people. They're elected by an electoral college,
which consists of
elected members of legislative assemblies, MLAs, from all states, and elected members of parliament, MPs, from both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. It gives representation to both the states and the union legislature in choosing the president.
And getting rid of a president isn't easy. There's an impeachment process.
It's very difficult. It requires a motion of impeachment with high majority thresholds in parliament. It ensures stability. The president is also considered the first citizen of India, a symbolic role, and their salary reflects the office's stature.
Qualifications. Needs to be an Indian citizen, at least 35, can't hold another government job, and must be qualified to be elected to the Lok Sabha.
Pretty standard requirements for high office. Now, their powers and functions are expensive, even if many are exercised on the advice of the Prime Minister. Under executive powers, they make key appointments. The Prime Minister, other ministers, state governors, ambassadors, Attorney General, Chief Election Commissioner, Supreme Court, and High Court judges. The list goes on. Hugely important appointments.
And legislative powers. They address Parliament. Their signature, assent is needed for bills to become law. They can dissolve the Lok Sabha, issue ordinances, temporary laws when Parliament isn't sitting, and nominate some members to both houses.
They also have judicial powers, appointing the Chief Justice and other judges, and the very significant pardoning power. They can reduce or pardon sentences, including death sentences. A final check.
Financially, their assent is needed for money bills.
Correct. And critically, the emergency powers. They can declare national, state president's rule, or financial emergencies under specific grave circumstances. We'll get into those later.
And the president's office can become vacant through term expiry, death, resignation, impeachment, or if the Supreme Court voids their election.
Right. And that impeachment process, Article 61, is rigorous, needs initiation with significant support in either house, investigation by the other house, and then a 2/3 majority vote in both houses to remove the president for proven misbehavior or violation of the Constitution. Very high bar.
You mentioned the election is complex. Articles 54 and 55, something about vote values and transferable votes.
Yes, it's proportional representation via the single transferable vote. Basically, each MLA's and MP's vote has a calculated value based on population. Voters rank candidates by preference, first, second, third. If no one gets over 50% of the total vote value based on first preferences, the candidate with the fewest first preferences is eliminated. Their votes are then transferred to the voters' second preferences among the remaining candidates. This continues until someone crosses the majority threshold. It aims for a consensus candidate.
Sounds complicated but fair. Okay, let's move to the vice president. Also a 5-year term.
Yes. And their electoral college is slightly different. It includes all members elected and nominated of both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha.
From their role.
It's twofold. If the president's office is vacant, the VP acts as president for up to 6 months. Their main day job, though, is being the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha, presiding over the upper house, similar to the U.S. vice president in that sense.
Qualifications are similar, too. Indian citizen, 35 years old, but qualified to be a Rajya Sabha member this time. Now, the Prime Minister. Often seen as the most powerful figure in India.
That's generally true in practice. The PM is the head of government. Appointed by the president, but constitutionally, the president must appoint the person who commands a majority in the Lok Sabha, usually the leader of the largest party or coalition.
And their role is central to the executive.
Absolutely pivotal. The PM heads the Council of Ministers, presides over cabinet meetings, is the main link between the president and the ministers. They have the power to select ministers, allocate portfolios, and reshuffle the cabinet. Term is 5 years, as long as they maintain the Lok Sabha's confidence.
So this is where that de jure president versus de facto PM power distinction really comes into play.
Precisely. While the president holds many formal powers, most are exercised on the advice of the PM and the Council of Ministers. The PM is the real chief executive in the parliamentary system.
And the PM must be a member of parliament.
Yes, either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. If appointed without being a member, they have 6 months to get elected to either house.
And their tenure can end in various ways.
Sure. Resignation, losing leadership of their party, losing a no-confidence vote in the Lok Sabha, a major split in their ruling coalition, the budget getting defeated, or the Lok Sabha being dissolved for fresh elections. Accountability is built in.
Okay, finally in the Union Executive, the Council of Ministers. Chosen by the PM, appointed by the President.
That's right, and like the PM, they must be or become MPs within 6 months. They take an oath administered by the President.
And there are different ranks of ministers.
Yes. At the top are cabinet ministers heading major ministries, forming the core decision-making body, the cabinet. Then ministers of state with independent charge, handling smaller ministries. Below them, ministers of state who assist cabinet ministers, and sometimes deputy ministers. A key point added by an amendment is the size limit. The total council of ministers cannot exceed 15% of the total strength of the Lok Sabha. This prevents excessively large, unwieldy cabinets.
Okay, so that's the executive implementing the laws. Now let's turn to those who make the laws, the Union Legislature or Parliament, and the guardians of justice, the Supreme Court. The checks and balances.
Exactly. The lawmakers and the law interpreters. Crucial components.
So the Union Legislature is called Parliament. It comprises the President plus the two houses, Rajya Sabha, Upper House, and Lok Sabha, Lower House. The name Parliament comes from French parlor, to talk, discuss, decide. Apt.
Very apt. And its powers and functions are vast. Primary is legislative power, making laws for the whole country, following that process through both houses and presidential assent. It holds the financial power controlling the nation's finances through passing the budget and other financial bills. No money can be spent without Parliament's approval.
It also has administration powers, right? Holding the government accountable.
Yes. Through things like question hour, debates, motions, ministers have to answer to Parliament, and fundamental constitution powers. Parliament can amend the Constitution within certain limits set by the Judiciary. It also has other powers, like participating in the election of the President and Vice President.
And Parliament meets in sessions. Budget, monsoon, winter.
Correct. Those are the three main sessions typically held each year for conducting legislative business.
Let's quickly define some parliamentary terms that often come up. Adjournment.
That's just a temporary suspension of the sitting of the House until a later time or day.
Adjournment sine die.
That means adjourning the House without setting a date for the next meeting. Usually happens at the end of a session. Sine die means without a day.
Dissolution.
That applies only to the Lok Sabha. It ends the life of the House, requiring fresh general elections. The president dissolves it, usually on the PM's advice.
Session versus recess.
A session is the period when Parliament meets. A recess is the gap between sessions. Just the daily sittings of the House, morning and afternoon, where the actual work gets done.
And question hour, 0 hour.
Those are specific times, usually at the start of the sitting, dedicated to MPs asking questions to ministers, question hour, or raising urgent matters without advance notice, 0 hour. Key accountability tools.
And quorum, the minimum number needed.
Yes, usually 1/10 of the total members must be present for the House to conduct business. Prevents decisions being made by just a handful of people.
General qualifications for MPs, citizen obviously, age limits.
25 years minimum for Lok Sabha, 30 years for Rajya Sabha. Plus, they need to be mentally sound, not bankrupt, not have serious criminal convictions, and not hold a conflicting government job, office of profit.
Okay, let's look at the two houses. Rajya Sabha first. The Upper House, House of Elders, the Permanent House.
Right. It's never dissolved. Total strength is 250. Of these, 238 are elected by the elected members of state legislative assemblies representing the states. The other 12 are nominated by the president, people with expertise in arts, literature, science, social service, brings diverse experience.
And their term?
It's a 6-year term, but it's staggered. 1/3 of the members retire every 2 years. This ensures continuity. The Vice President of India is the ex officio chairman.
Now, the Lok Sabha, Lower House, House of People, directly elected.
This is where the government is formed. Total strength, 545 currently. 530 elected from states, 13 from union territories. The provision for 2 nominated Anglo-Indians by the president is no longer operative after a recent amendment.
And unlike Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha can be dissolved.
Yes, the president can dissolve it before its 5-year term ends, usually leading to midterm elections. Its term can also be extended by a year during a national emergency. It's presided over by the speaker, elected by the members.
Got it. Now, the Supreme Court, the apex judicial body, guardian of the Constitution.
Established in 1950, based in New Delhi. Provisions are in Articles 124 to 147. It's the final court of appeal.
Composition. 1 Chief Justice and Shed.
And currently 33 other judges, as sanctioned by Parliament. The Chief Justice, CJI, is appointed by the President, usually based on seniority. Other judges are appointed by the President after consulting the CJI and other senior judges, a system often called the collegium system.
Qualifications for a Supreme Court judge.
Indian citizen, must have been a high court judge for at least 5 years, or a high court advocate for at least 10 years, or be a distinguished jurist in the President's opinion. They serve until age 65. Retired judges can't practice law, but can take on special assignments.
And removal, impeachment again, like the president.
Yes, impeachment, Article 124A, for judges too, but only for proven misbehavior or incapacity. Extremely difficult process. Needs a motion supported by 100 Lok Sabha or 50 Rajya Sabha members. If admitted by the Speaker Chairman, a committee of judges investigates. If they find guilt, the motion needs a special majority, 2/3 present and voting, an absolute majority of total membership in both houses. Only then can the president remove the judge. This difficulty ensures judicial independence.
Salaries reflect the high office.
Naturally.
What are its main powers and functions?
It has original jurisdiction, meaning some cases start directly at the Supreme Court. These are mainly disputes between the center and states, or between states. It has appellate jurisdiction, hearing appeals from high courts in civil, criminal, and constitutional cases. It's the highest court of appeal. And critically, it's the guardian of fundamental rights. It can issue those writs, habeas corpus, man-in-laws, etc., to enforce fundamental rights. This is a cornerstone of its power.
And below the Supreme Court, there's a whole hierarchy. Yes, Supreme Court at the top, then high courts in the states, below them, district and sessions courts at the district level, and then various subordinate courts like magistrate courts and civil courts at lower levels. A pyramid structure ensuring justice delivery across the country.
Okay, we've done the union level, but India's federal, so states have their own governance structures too, right? Mirroring the center mostly.
Exactly. Part 6 of the Constitution deals with state governments. The structure is very similar. A state legislature, state executive, and state judiciary. High courts and subordinate courts. It's designed for parallel governance.
Let's look at the state legislature. Governor plus
the Legislative Assembly, Vidhana Sabha, and in some states, a Legislative Council, Vidhana Parishad.
So not all states have two houses.
No. Most are unicameral, just having the Vidhana Sabha. Only 6 states currently have a bicameral legislature with both houses. Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Bihar, Karnataka, Telangana, and Andhra Pradesh.
Let's talk about that upper house, the Vidhana Parishad Legislative Council. Its size. Minimum 40 members, maximum 1/3 the strength of the state's Vidhana Sabha. Karnataka, for instance, has 75 MLCs, members of Legislative Council.
In term, like Rajya Sabha.
Similar. It's a permanent house in the sense it can't be dissolved, but interestingly, a state can decide to abolish its Legislative Council altogether through a process involving the state assembly and parliament. Members have a 6-year term, with 1/3 retiring every 2 years.
How are MLCs chosen? Is it direct election?
It's a mix. Some are elected by local bodies, municipalities, district boards, some by graduates residing in the state, some by teachers. A significant portion are elected by the MLAs of the Vidhana Sabha, and about 1/6 are nominated by the governor for expertise in various fields like art, science, literature, social service, cooperative movement. Quite a complex composition.
Qualifications. Indian citizen, 30 years old.
Correct.
Now the main state house, the Vidhana Sabha Legislative Assembly. Directly elected, like the Lok Sabha.
Yes, this is the House of People at the state level.
Yeah.
Minimum strength is usually 60, though some smaller states have fewer, like Sikkim with 32. Maximum is 500. Uttar Pradesh has the largest. Karnataka currently has 224 members, MLAs.
Qualifications. Indian citizen, 25 years old.
Right. And salaries for MLAs vary quite a bit from state to state.
On to the state executive. Starts with the governor, appointed by the president.
Yes, the governor is the constitutional head of the state, appointed by the president, usually on the advice of the central government. Takes oath from the Chief Justice of the state high court.
Qualifications. Indian, 35 years old, qualified to be an MLA, no office of profit. Term is 5 years, but can end sooner through resignation, dismissal by president, death, or transfer.
Correct.
And their powers and functions mirror the president's at the state level.
Largely, yes. Executive powers. Appoints the chief minister, other state ministers, the state advocate general, members of the State Public Service Commission. Judicial powers. Involved in appointing high court judges, consulted by president, has pardoning power for offenses against state laws.
Legislative powers. Addresses the state legislature, gives assent to state bills, can recommend president's rule, nominates some members to the legislature.
And emergency powers. Acts as the head of state during president's rule. So a very similar set of functions, adapted for the state context.
Then the chief minister, state, head of the state government.
Yes, the real executive head at the state level. Appointed by the governor, leader of the majority party coalition in the Vidhana Sabha. 5-year term, subject to confidence of the assembly.
And like the PM, they're the link between the governor and ministers, head of state cabinet, choose ministers.
Exactly. Presides over state cabinet meetings, allocates portfolios, shuffles ministers. All the governor's powers are effectively exercised on the advice of the chief minister and the state council of ministers. They hold the real power.
And their tenure can end similarly to the PM's resignation, losing majority, no confidence vote, etc.
Yes. The mechanisms for accountability are parallel.
Now, the High Court, top court in the state.
Yes, the apex court within the state's judicial hierarchy. There are 25 high courts across India. Retirement age for judges is 62.
Composition, Chief Justice and other judges.
Correct. Chief Justice appointed by the president after consulting the CJI and the state governor. Other judges appointed by the president after consulting the CJI, governor, and the Chief Justice of that high court.
Qualifications for high court judges.
Indian citizen, under 62. Must have been an advocate in the High Court for at least 10 years or held judicial office in India for at least 10 years. Ensures experience.
Okay, that covers state governance basics. Now, the lifeblood of democracy, elections. India being the world's largest democracy.
It's a massive undertaking. Part XV of the Constitution, Articles 324 to 329, deals with elections.
And the core principle is universal adult franchise.
Yes. Every adult citizen, now 18 years or older, reduced from 21 in 1989 by the 61st Amendment, has the right to vote, irrespective of caste, creed, religion, sex, etc. Some disqualifications exist: non-residence, unsound mind, certain criminal convictions.
And the whole process is managed by the Election Commission, an independent body.
Crucially independent. At the national level, it's headed by the Chief Election Commissioner, CEC, and 2 election commissioners appointed by the President. Each state has a chief electoral officer. Then there are officials down to the constituency level.
Their term, 6 years or 65 years of age.
Whichever is earlier. And importantly, their status and salary are equivalent to Supreme Court judges, reinforcing their independence from the executive. This independence is absolutely vital, isn't it? To ensure free and fair elections, which builds public trust in the whole democratic process.
Absolutely. What are their main powers and functions?
Conducting elections for president, vice president, parliament, state legislatures, preparing and revising the electoral rolls, voter lists, delimiting constituencies, deciding boundaries, setting qualifications for candidates, reserving seats for SCSSTs as per the Constitution. A huge mandate.
And there are different types of election.
Yes. General elections, every 5 years, usually for Lok Sabha Vidhana Sabha. Midterm elections, if a house is dissolved early. Re-election, if polling in a place is declared void due to irregularities. And by-elections, to fill a single vacancy due to death or resignation.
The actual election procedure seems quite involved. Starts with notifications.
Yes. President notifies for Lok Sabha, governor for state assembly. EC issues detailed schedule, dates for nominations, scrutiny, withdrawal, polling, counting.
Candidates file nomination papers, deposit required.
Yeah.
Papers are checked. Then campaigning.
Right. Usually a couple of weeks for campaigning, which must stop 48 hours before polling day. Then polling happens, followed by counting of votes under EC supervision, and finally the declaration of results. The union government also has powers to make laws regarding election procedures.
Okay, we've seen how the Constitution works, but how does it change? Amendments. Article 368.
Correct. Part XX, Article 368 lays down the procedure. The idea is that the Constitution is fundamental, shouldn't be changed lightly, but must be adaptable to remain relevant. It needs to be dynamic.
And there are different ways to amend it, depending on what's being changed, reflecting different levels of importance.
Exactly. There are 3 methods of amendment. 1, simple majority. Some provisions can be changed by a simple majority of Parliament, more than 50% of members present and voting, like creating new states, changing state boundaries, citizenship rules. 2, special majority. Most provisions require a special majority, a majority of the total membership of each House, A&D, a majority of 2/3 of the members present and voting in each House. 3, special majority PLUS state ratification. For fundamental changes affecting the federal structure, like division of powers, election president, Supreme High Court powers, you need that special majority in Parliament PLUS ratification by the legislatures of at least half of the states. This is the toughest method, ensuring broad consensus for core changes.
So the general procedure is, introduce an amendment bill in either house, pass it with the required majority, simple or special, get it passed by the other house with the same majority. If state ratification is needed, get that. Then present it to the president for assent. Once the president signs, the Constitution stands amended.
And over 100 amendments show this process has been used extensively.
Let's touch on a few really important amendments. The 42nd Amendment, 1976 sounds huge, the mini-constitution.
It was massive. During the emergency, amended 52 articles, the seventh schedule, added socialist and secular to the preamble, introduced fundamental duties, made significant changes to DPSPs, executive powers, parliament's powers. Very controversial, extensive changes.
Then the 44th Amendment, 1979, rolled some of that back.
Yes, the post-emergency government made changes. Deleted right to property as a fundamental right. Importantly, changed the ground for national emergency from internal disturbance to armed rebellion, a key safeguard. Also put limits on extending president's rule easily.
The 74th Amendment, 1993.
About local government. Yes, strengthened urban local bodies, municipalities, by adding the 12th schedule. Part of the push for decentralization.
86th Amendment, 2002.
Education.
Made right to education for ages 6 to 14 a fundamental right. Article 21A. Hugely significant social measure.
And the 91st Amendment, 2003, limited the size of ministries.
Yes. Capped the Council of Ministers, center and states, at 15% of the strength of the Lok Sabha Sabha, aimed at curbing oversized cabinets and political patronage.
Okay, last major topic, emergency provisions. What happens when things go seriously wrong?
The Constitution provides mechanisms for the president to declare an emergency if the security, stability, or financial health of the country is under grave threat from war, rebellion, internal breakdown, or financial crisis. These grant the central government extraordinary powers.
There are three types.
Yes. First, national emergency, Article 352, often called war emergency.
Grounds for this. Security of India threatened by war, external aggression, or armed rebellion within the country. And the procedure is key. President declares it only after receiving a written recommendation from the Union Cabinet, PM and ministers. That written requirement was added by the 44th Amendment after the 1975 experience, remember, to prevent a PM acting unilaterally.
Right, the safeguard. It can apply to the whole country or just a part.
Yes. Duration, initially 1 month. Must be approved by both houses of parliament, special majority, within that month to continue. Can then be extended for 6 months at a time indefinitely, with repeated parliamentary approval every 6 months. President can revoke it any time.
Effects are significant. Central government power increases massively.
Dramatically. Union executive power extends to giving directions to any state. Parliament can legislate on state list subjects. Financial arrangements between center and states can be altered. Fundamental rights under Article 19 can be suspended, and others, except Articles 20 and 21, can be suspended by presidential order. State governments function under central control.
And it has been declared before, 1962, 1965, 1971, and 1975.
Correct. The first three due to external conflicts, the 1975 one due to internal disturbance, later changed to armed rebellion.
Second type, state emergency, Article 356, or President's rule.
This is when the constitutional machinery in a state breaks down, maybe no stable government can be formed, or the state isn't complying with central directions. Also can be imposed due to external aggression or internal rebellion affecting the state.
Procedure. Usually based on a report from the state governor, the president declares it if satisfied.
It applies only within that specific state. Duration. Initially, 2 months. Needs simple majority approval from Parliament within that time to continue for 6 months, can be extended further, 6 months at a time, up to a maximum of 3 years, with stricter conditions for extensions beyond 1 year. President can revoke it any time.
Effects. The state government is dismissed or assembly suspended. Governor rules the state on behalf of the president, usually with advisors from the center. Parliament makes laws for the state.
And this one has been used very frequently, over 110 times, sometimes controversially, raising questions about federalism.
Finally, financial emergency, Article 360.
This is if the financial stability or credit of India or any part is threatened. Procedure, duration, revocation are similar to national emergency. Parliamentary approval needed.
Effects. Can salaries be cut?
Yes, the center can give financial directions to states. President can order reduction of salaries and allowances of central and state employees, including Supreme Court and High Court judges. Revenue distribution can be modified.
And has this ever been declared?
Remarkably, no. Despite some close calls, perhaps, financial emergency has never been formally declared in India, a sign of underlying financial stability, perhaps.
Wow. We have really covered a massive amount of ground today, a genuine deep dive into the Indian Constitution, its history, its philosophy, the detailed machinery of how India is governed, the rights, the duties, how it changes, how it handles crises, module by module.
It's quite a journey, isn't it? And what really stands out, I think, is how this document, born from intense debate, and drawing wisdom from across the globe, truly functions as a living document. It's designed to protect, empower, but also to adapt. That balance of power between the union and states, the guarantees, it's held together this incredibly diverse nation.
It's definitely more than just laws on paper. It feels like a dynamic roadmap, constantly being interpreted, evolving, yet anchored by those core principles: justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. Quite an achievement.
Which leads to a final thought, maybe. As India keeps changing, facing new global pressures, new internal dynamics, how will this remarkable constitution continue to shape its path? What new interpretations, new challenges, new ways of applying its principles will we see in the future? It's a story still being written.
A powerful question to ponder. We hope this exploration gives you a deeper appreciation for the foundation of Indian governance. Keep thinking critically about these structures that shape all our lives. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.